Science fiction didn't just predict the future, it invented the way blockbusters look today. Before CGI, before billion-dollar franchises, bold filmmakers were already sketching out galaxies, robots, and worlds that modern hits still copy frame by frame. But here's the question. Are today's sci-fi epics truly original, or just polished echoes of the past? Get ready, because we're diving into the American classics that built the DNA of modern blockbusters. And the results might surprise you. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. Imagine a spaceship landing in Washington, D.C., not to conquer, but to warn. That was the shock of the day the Earth stood still. Released at the height of Cold War anxiety, this film flipped expectations. Instead of aliens as mindless threats, we got Klaatu, a calm envoy played by Michael Rennie, accompanied by the now iconic robot Gort. His mission wasn't destruction, but a chilling warning. Humanity's growing obsession with atomic power could endanger more than Earth. It could disrupt the entire universe. Director Robert Wise approached the story with restraint. There are no sprawling battle scenes or loud explosions. Instead, suspense builds through tense conversations, mistrust, and the unease of a planet teetering on the edge of self-destruction. Bernard Herrmann's eerie theremin score makes every moment feel otherworldly. And Patricia Neal's performance grounds the story in human fear and empathy. Why does this film still matter? Because modern sci-fi hits like Arrival and The Day After Tomorrow borrow its DNA, using science fiction not just for spectacle, but for moral questions. What happens when we're confronted with intelligence far beyond our own? Do we listen or react with fear? 70 years later, the saucer might look dated, but its message that survival requires cooperation, not chaos, feels more urgent than ever. This film proves sci-fi could be smart, subtle, and world-changing all at once. Forbidden Planet, 1956. Before there was Star Trek, before there was Star Wars, there was Forbidden Planet. This wasn't a pulp B movie with rubber aliens. This was Shakespeare in space. Released in 1956, the film reimagined the Tempest on a Distant World, blending high drama with groundbreaking visuals. Walter Pidgeon stars as Doctor. Morbius, a man who has unlocked the secrets of an extinct alien civilization, the Krell. But in gaining their knowledge, he's also unleashed a monster from within, his subconscious fears given terrifying form. The movie introduced audiences to Robbie the Robot, a design so influential it inspired decades of robot characters. It was also the first major sci-fi film shot in CinemaScope, with dazzling matte paintings, elaborate sets, and even an electronic score crafted by Louis and Bebe Barron, years before electronic music became mainstream. This was the blueprint for how sci-fi could look vast, intelligent, and stylish. But it wasn't just technical marvels that made it legendary. Forbidden Planet asked a deeper question. What happens when human intelligence outpaces emotional maturity? That theme ripples through modern blockbusters like 2001, A Space Odyssey, Alien, and even Inception, where the dangers of the mind prove more lethal than any monster. Its ending, where knowledge and hubris consume everything, still feels hauntingly modern. Without this film, the cinematic universe as we know it might never have expanded past Earth. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. You wake up one morning and realize your best friend, your neighbor, even your spouse looks the same, talks the same, but something is gone. No emotion, no humanity. That's the nightmare of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Set in a small California town, this story of alien pod people quietly replacing humans tapped into the deepest fear of the 1950s, losing identity in a world where conformity was king. Director Don Siegel crafted terror not with flashy effects, but with silence, shadows, and unease. Kevin McCarthy's panicked cry, "You're next," remains one of the most iconic lines in sci-fi history. Audiences saw it as a reflection of their times. Some interpreted it as a metaphor for communism creeping into American life, others as a jab at McCarthy-era paranoia. Either way, it worked because it felt personal. It wasn't about spaceships. It was about your neighbor not being who they seemed. The movie's influence is staggering. John Carpenter's The Thing, Jordan Peele's Us, and even The Matrix all echo its paranoia of being replaced by something less human. Its power lies in its ambiguity. There are no grand battles or explosions, just the creeping realization that humanity could vanish without a sound. More than half a century later, in a digital age where we constantly question what's real and what's imitation, this story feels more alive than ever. The Thing from Another World by Snatchers. Buried in Arctic ice, scientists uncover something strange. A spaceship, frozen solid. What follows is claustrophobic dread. The Thing from Another World might not have the gore of its 1982 remake, but it set the template for one of sci-fi horror's most enduring formulas. Isolation, paranoia, and a menace no one fully understands. Produced by Howard Hawks and directed by Christian Nyby, the film focused less on spectacle and more on human conflict. Soldiers and scientists clash over what to do with the creature, a humanoid alien played by James Arness. Is it a chance to learn or a threat that must be destroyed? This tension between curiosity and survival drives the drama. Shadows down icy hallways, footsteps in the snow, and flickering lights build suspense without ever showing too much. Though some audiences initially saw it as a standard monster flick, its DNA runs deep through cinema. Alien, The Mist, and even Stranger Things borrow its blend of paranoia and enclosed terror. John Carpenter's remake would later expand the horror, but his version owes everything to this atmospheric original. Its final warning, "Keep watching the skies," is more than a tagline. It's a haunting reminder that danger doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it waits, silent and patient, just out of sight. The War of the Worlds, 1953. Martians arrive in fiery ships, cities crumble, humanity runs helpless. The War of the Worlds took H.G. Wells' legendary novel and brought it to vivid, terrifying life on the big screen. Released in 1953, it was one of the first major films to capture the scale of an alien invasion in full color and motion, setting the gold standard for spectacle-driven sci-fi. Directed by Byron Haskin and produced by George Pal, the movie stunned audiences with its effects. Sleek manta-ray-shaped Martian machines hovered menacingly, armed with heat rays that reduced anything in their path to ash. The piercing sound of those beams became unforgettable, so unsettling that it's still imitated today. The destruction of Los Angeles was staged with such detail that stock footage from the film was reused for years afterward. But beneath the spectacle was a deeper fear, helplessness. Released during the Cold War, the film tapped into the collective dread of annihilation, of entire cities reduced in moments. And yet, in a twist that remains humbling, it wasn't humanity's power that saved the day. It was nature, ordinary bacteria that Martians couldn't survive. That ending still resonates as a reminder that survival isn't always about bigger weapons or smarter tactics. Sometimes it's about the smallest details we overlook. Modern blockbusters like Independence Day and Spielberg's 2005 War of the Worlds remake owe their entire structure to this film. Its DNA is everywhere, in the way we imagine mass destruction, in the panic of global collapse, and in the awe of seeing Earth's skies light up with fire. More than 70 years later, it remains the original alien apocalypse blockbuster, Them, 1954. It starts with a girl wandering in the desert, silent, terrified, clutching a broken doll. Nearby, a trailer has been ripped apart. The culprit? Not a thief, not a stranger, but ants. Giant, mutated ants. Them. Was one of the very first creature features to nail the formula. And in doing so, it gave birth to decades of blockbuster monster movies. Released in 1954 and directed by Gordon Douglas, the film took a concept that could have been pure pulp and played it straight. Instead of campy laughs, it leaned into dread. Military men, scientists, and detectives piece together the mystery like a noir thriller. By the time the giant ants appear, the audience is invested, and the horror feels earned. Shot in stark black and white, the film balances atmosphere with practical effects that still hold surprising weight today. But Them wasn't just about ants. It was about the atomic age. Those creatures were born of radiation, reflecting a Nations fear that human experimentation could unleash consequences we couldn't contain. It's a theme echoed later in films like Jurassic Park, Godzilla, and even Cloverfield, and that famous line near the end, "When man entered the atomic age, he opened a door into a new world, and we haven't closed it since," still lingers like a prophecy. Modern blockbusters learned from its pacing, its reveal, and its blend of spectacle with subtext. Without them, the idea of science gone wrong spawning disaster might never have become the bedrock of big-screen entertainment. It wasn't just another bug movie, it was the giant leap that showed how monsters could be metaphors, and how audiences would come back again and again to see them unleashed. The Incredible Shrinking Man, 1957. Not all sci-fi battles are cosmic. Some are fought in basements. That's the brilliance of The Incredible Shrinking Man. Released in 1957, it turned the ordinary into the terrifying, shrinking one man's life until even his house became an arena of survival. Scott Carey, played by Grant Williams, is exposed to a mysterious mist while boating. Slowly, inexplicably, he begins to shrink. At first, it's an odd inconvenience, clothes too big, furniture suddenly overwhelming. But soon, the world becomes lethal. A house cat becomes a predator. A spider becomes a mortal enemy. A spilled droplet of water becomes a flood. Director Jack Arnold transformed what could have been a gimmick into poetry. Using oversized sets and practical effects, he made audiences see the world anew. Ordinary objects became massive threats. But what truly elevated the film was its depth. It wasn't just about shrinking. It was about identity, masculinity, and existence itself. As Scott grows smaller, his relationships dissolve, his pride collapses, and his place in the world disappears. The finale remains breathtaking. Alone, reduced beyond visibility, Scott faces the infinite with calm acceptance. His monologue, about existence continuing no matter how small, remains one of sci-fi's most hauntingly beautiful moments. The influence of this film can be felt everywhere, from light-hearted adventures like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, to Marvel's Ant-Man. But more importantly, it showed that science fiction could be deeply personal, intimate, and philosophical. It proved that the genre wasn't just about the stars, it was also about the soul. Planet of the Apes, 1968. A barren desert, a shattered Statue of Liberty, a man screaming in despair. Planet of the Apes didn't just end with one of cinema's greatest twists. It redefined science fiction as allegory. Released in 1968, Franklin J. Schaffner's adaptation of Pierre Boulle's novel wasn't about monkeys in costumes. It was about humanity, arrogance, and the cycle of downfall. Charlton Heston stars as astronaut George Taylor, who crash lands on a strange planet ruled by intelligent apes. Here, the roles are reversed. Apes are the ruling. Class and humans are mute, marginalized, and controlled. Beneath the surface spectacle of ape cities and prosthetic makeup, the film ripped into contemporary issues, racism, war, and the dangers of blind faith and superiority. The ape makeup, groundbreaking for its time, gave actors freedom to perform with nuance. Maurice Evans as Dr. Zaius delivered some of the film's sharpest lines, framing the ape's world as both a cautionary tale and a reflection of ours. The ending, where Taylor realizes he's been on Earth all along, shattered audiences and left an indelible mark on pop culture. The franchise it spawned is legendary, from sequels and TV spin-offs to the modern reboots led by Andy Serkis. But its influence stretches even further. Films like District 9, The Hunger Games, and countless dystopian blockbusters owe a debt to Planet of the Apes for proving sci-fi could tackle weighty themes while still thrilling crowds. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a mirror, and the reflection it offered was uncomfortable, unforgettable, and ahead of its time. Silent Running, 1972. Before Wall-E charmed audiences with lonely robots tending to plants, Silent Running told a quieter, sadder version of the same story. Released in 1972, it was a small film with big ideas, and it helped shape environmental themes in modern sci-fi. Bruce Dern stars as Freeman Lowell, a botanist aboard a spaceship carrying Earth's last forests preserved in domes. When orders come to destroy the domes and return the ship to commercial use, Lowell rebels. He saves the last dome, aided only by 3 small drones, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Directed by Douglas Trumbull, the visual effects wizard behind 2001, A Space Odyssey. The film blended minimalist storytelling with haunting imagery. The drones, created with practical effects and puppeteers inside, became some of sci-fi's most beloved mechanical companions. But the heart of the film was its environmental message. Released during the early stirrings of the environmental movement, Silent Running asked bluntly, "If Earth's resources vanish, what will we do to protect what's left?" Though modest in scale, its influence looms large. Pixar's Wall-E, Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, and even Avatar echo its themes of ecological survival and human responsibility. Its ending, where a single drone tends the last forest adrift in space, is both heartbreaking and hopeful. Silent Running may not have had the box office might of bigger sci-fi hits, but its quiet legacy is undeniable. It proved that sometimes the most powerful science fiction doesn't roar, it whispers. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977. What if First Contact wasn't terrifying, but transcendent? That was the gamble Steven Spielberg took with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and it paid off in pure cinematic wonder. Released in 1977, just months after Star Wars, it offered something entirely different, awe instead of action. Richard Dreyfuss plays Roy Neary, an ordinary man who experiences a close encounter that alters his life. Drawn by visions and compulsions, he joins others who share the same pull toward Devil's Tower, Wyoming, where a meeting with extraterrestrials is destined to occur. Spielberg filled the film with imagery that felt both eerie and majestic. Strange lights in the sky, electrical outages, and the iconic 5-tone musical communication with the aliens. Instead of panic or invasion, the climax is a moment of connection. Humanity doesn't fight the unknown, it learns from it. John Williams' score soars, while cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond fills the screen with dazzling light displays that remain unforgettable. What makes the film remarkable is its optimism. At a time when many sci-fi stories were about paranoia and destruction, Close Encounters dared to say, maybe we're not alone, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Its influence is massive. Movies like Contact, Arrival, and even Interstellar borrow its blend of human drama and cosmic mystery. It showed that sci-fi could be emotional, even spiritual, without ever losing its sense of spectacle. Spielberg didn't just direct a movie. He crafted an invitation to look up at the skies not with fear, but with wonder. Star Wars, A New Hope, 1977. When Star Wars hit theaters in 1977, it didn't just change sci-fi, it changed movies forever. George Lucas took pulp serials, samurai films, and space opera tropes, then fused them into a blockbuster unlike anything audiences had ever seen. Suddenly, sci-fi wasn't niche, it was the biggest show on Earth. From the opening crawl to the first sight of a Star Destroyer filling the screen, Star Wars announced itself as an epic. Luke Skywalker's journey from farm boy to hero echoed timeless myths, but it was wrapped in dazzling visuals, groundbreaking effects, and John Williams' soaring score. The mix of practical models, innovative camera tricks, and lived-in world design made the galaxy feel tangible. But what really set it apart was its accessibility. Unlike the cerebral 2001 or the paranoid body snatchers, Star Wars was fun. Adventure, humor, romance, it had everything. Audiences of all ages could connect, and suddenly sci-fi wasn't just for enthusiasts. It was mainstream. Its influence can't be overstated. The modern franchise model, from Marvel to Harry Potter, owes its existence to Star Wars. Every space battle, every reluctant hero, every villain cloaked in shadow traces back to Lucas's vision. The film didn't just inspire blockbusters, it created the blockbuster as we know it. Alien, 1979. In space, no one can hear you scream. That tagline alone set the stage for Ridley Scott's Alien, a film that fused horror and science fiction into something unforgettable, where Star Wars showed space as adventure Alien showed it as Nightmare. The story is simple. The crew of the Nostromo responds to a distress signal, only to bring aboard a life form that will kill them one by one. What unfolds is claustrophobic terror. The alien itself, designed by artist H.R. Geiger, was unlike anything ever seen on screen, biomechanical and utterly otherworldly. The infamous chestburster scene shocked audiences, not just for its intensity, but for its unpredictability. Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley became a landmark character, resourceful, resilient, and ultimately the sole survivor. Her journey inspired countless modern heroines in sci-fi and beyond. Scott's use of shadow, slow pacing, and industrial set design gave the film a realism that made the horror hit even harder. Alien's DNA runs deep in modern blockbusters. From Predator to Prometheus to Sunshine, filmmakers continue to mine its blend of suspense and spectacle. It proved that science fiction could terrify as much as it could inspire, and it left viewers with a chilling truth. The greatest danger might not come from distant stars, but from what we unleash by chasing them. Blade Runner 1982, neon lights, endless rain, a future that looks disturbingly familiar. Blade Runner wasn't a hit when it premiered in 1982, but over time, it became one of the most influential sci-fi films ever made. Ridley Scott's vision of Los Angeles in 2019 shaped the look of countless blockbusters that followed. Based loosely on Philip K. Dick's novel, the film follows Rick Deckard, a weary Blade Runner tasked with hunting down replicants, bioengineered beings nearly indistinguishable from humans. The story is part noir, part meditation on identity. What makes someone human? Is it biology or memory or empathy? Visually, Blade Runner was revolutionary. Its skyscrapers, flying cars, and crowded streets inspired everything from The Matrix to Ghost in the Shell. The mood, smoky, rain-soaked, buzzing with neon, became the template for cyberpunk. Vangelis's synth score added an eerie, dreamlike quality that still resonates. Though critics were divided at first, its influence is now undeniable. Modern films like Minority Report, Ex Machina, and even television like Westworld carry its fingerprints. Blade Runner taught sci-fi to be stylish, thoughtful, and haunting. Its final question, whether Deckard himself is human, still sparks debate today. Sometimes, the greatest blockbusters don't give us answers. They leave us wondering. The Terminator, 1984. Few sci-fi films move with the relentless pace of The Terminator. Directed by James Cameron in 1984, it fused time travel, artificial intelligence, and non-stop action into a story that still feels fresh decades later. The premise? A machine is sent back in time to eliminate the mother of humanity's future leader. A soldier follows, tasked with protecting her. What could have been camp became iconic thanks to Cameron's tight direction, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's chilling performance as the unstoppable cyborg. The film's brilliance lies in its tension. The Terminator doesn't stop, doesn't rest, doesn't feel pity. It's a chase movie wrapped in sci-fi, a perfect blend of genre thrills. And behind the action, it asks big questions. What happens when our creations outgrow us? What if the future is already written? Its legacy is massive. It spawned sequels, inspired films like The Matrix and Edge of Tomorrow, and cemented Cameron as a master of blockbuster storytelling. The Terminator showed that science fiction could be fast, thrilling, and terrifying, all at once. Back to the Future, 1985. Not all sci-fi has to be grim. Sometimes it can be pure joy. Back to the Future, directed by Robert Zemeckis in 1985, turned time travel into one of cinema's most beloved adventures. Michael J. Fox stars as Marty McFly, a teenager accidentally sent back to 1955 in a DeLorean turn-time machine by eccentric inventor Doc Brown. To return home, Marty has to make sure his parents fall in love, without erasing himself in the process. The film blends humor, romance, and sci-fi with a light touch that still feels magical. Its clever use of paradoxes, iconic performances, and dazzling effects turned it into an instant classic. Audiences didn't just love the story. They loved the idea of, what if you could change the past? Back to the Future inspired a wave of time travel stories, from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure to Avengers Endgame. It proved that sci-fi could be fun, accessible, and endlessly rewatchable. Few films have captured the balance of adventure and imagination as perfectly. Even today, the DeLorean remains one of the most famous vehicles in movie history. From alien invaders to time-traveling DeLoreans, these films didn't just entertain, they built the framework for every modern sci-fi blockbuster you know. Without them, there's no Interstellar, no The Matrix, no Marvel space epics. Now, the question is, which of these classics do you think left the deepest mark on cinema? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more journeys into the history of film.